Opeyemi Oguntade, Senior Investment Officer at Financial Derivatives Company, joins me now. Good morning, Opeyemi. Good to have you.
Good morning.
Now, were you surprised when you saw this figure? 15.6%, that's quite a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot actually, and quite frankly, this period is usually an inflationary period because of the seasonalities attached to domestic commodities, where we usually experience harvest towards the end of June or at the beginning of July. But when we're looking at what happened in the month of May, I mean, there was a spike in the pump price or nominal price of petrol from 86 to 86.50 to 145 naira per litre across the nation. So that was a 68% increase. And then we've also had a power supply issues, which has led most consumers to shift to alternative power as a source to power their generators as well. So we've seen diesel prices increasing in recent times to 185 naira per litre for diesel. And all these things put together what contributed to the spike we've seen in inflation at 15.6%. That's the highest we've seen in like 6 years. The last time we saw inflation rate this high was in 2010. And so far this year, that's the fourth consecutive increase. In fact, it's the highest spike we've seen this year because the spike in between the month of January and February was just a 1.8% increase. But now in May, what we're seeing is a 1.9% increase in inflation rate. So this is significantly high.
Yeah. Now, looking at the uncertainty in the foreign exchange market, how much impact did that also make to what we have seen now on the inflation figure?
Well, if we're going through the report, it was recorded that imported food items actually spiked by 2.2% month-on-month to 18.6%. So what we're seeing is year-on-year, we've seen an increase in imported food items, 18.6% increase in imported food items. So this is largely due to the foreign exchange volatility we're seeing in the market. I mean, in the month of May, we saw it was about 320 naira to a dollar, and right now in the market is going for about 365 naira to a dollar, and this is because the CBN is yet to release the modalities of the new foreign exchange regime, and that's what we're seeing in the market right now.
Now, tomato prices, seem to have come down, as well as beans. I mean, we've seen these two commodities dropping recently. What are the factors contributing to the drop we're seeing now? I mean, talking about tomato, we have the tomato pest.
Yes.
I mean, is that over?
Well, the tuta absoluta, I wouldn't necessarily say it is over, but what we've seen in the market so far is there's been an improvement in production, and for that reason, that's why we're seeing tomato prices coming down from about 45,000 naira for a basket to 38,000 naira. And as a result, another reason why we're seeing prices come down is because we've seen consumers shifting to substitutes, because at such an expensive rate, there are other substitutes that could be used to make your stew or your jollof rice. So rather than buying tomatoes that high, you could go for your tomato paste, or you could use chopped up tomatoes in the tin cans.
What about this idea of, I mean, when you ask those in the market, I mean, the sellers in the market, they will tell you, oh, well, the other species of tomato, the one they call the Yoruba species,
yes,
is already coming out, and that's what part of the reasons we're seeing the downward trend in the price of tomato. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's another substitute to tomato, like you mentioned. That's the Yoruba variant of tomatoes. And like I mentioned earlier, we've seen consumers. There's been some level of consumer resistance, so consumers are shifting towards substitutes. And the tomato variant from the Yoruba side is definitely one of the substitutes being considered by consumers.
And what about beans?
What we've seen in beans, I mean, at this time, as at February, March, we saw beans prices increasing to about 25,000 naira for a 50 kg bag. And what we're seeing now is beans has returned back to the premium level, although compared to last year, it's still significantly higher, 16,000 naira for a 50 kg bag. And what most marketers blamed for the increase in beans prices is because they attributed it, for one, to the foreign exchange crisis that we had around that period in February, because it appeared that most commodities within the market increased, and in order to make up for the increase in cost of living, most traders had to increase the cost of their commodities to make money off.
Okay, looking at the trend now, we've seen inflation figure for May, 15.6, and of course all these other factors, the uncertainty in the foreign exchange market, what are your projections for the June inflation?
Well, going forward in June, we usually, due to seasonality effects, we expect the seasonality effect to start easing out in June, because then we have our early harvest and we could see a slight decline in food prices for one. But then looking at other factors such as electricity, the structural gridlocks with respect to energy, electricity, and logistics in that sector, that in itself is probably going to constrain, or rather stoke inflation further, because if we're seeing energy prices, like I rightly mentioned, diesel is currently at 185 naira per liter, and then we're also looking at the currency exchange, the forex crisis right now at 365 naira. That's definitely going to affect imported commodities. And so even if we're expecting inflation to ease out, we expect the pace at which is increasing to slow, but inflation rates in June are likely to still remain at double figure.
All right, thank you very much, Obemi.
Thank you for having me.